My name is Matia Simovich. Sometimes I go by Inhalt, which is my band name. I'm a producer, sound designer, engineer, musician. I run a recording studio here in Los Angeles called Infinite Power Studios, and my kind of area of emphasis in terms of the records that I work on is dark electronic music, dark wave, EBM, synth pop. Not exclusively that, but that tends to be my area of emphasis. I've worked with labels like Deus Records, Bureau B, Dark Entries Records, Avant, and I tend to bring a very, very high-end production with a big mixing desk, lots of hardware, tape, to independent and alternative records, records that I feel culturally and maybe thematically or contextually bring something really important to the table, and I try and make these records sound amazing and competitive with top 40 pop records in terms of the sonics and the creative integrity behind them. As a sound designer, I work with a lot of big synthesizer companies. This year has been 10 years working with Sequential / Oberheim. I've worked on everything from the Prophet 12 to the latest OBX8 on the shipping factory banks. With Sequential, I also did a lot of beta testing and, kind of helping inform the development on the back end. I also worked with Roland. I made a lot of sound packs, especially genre sound packs, things that I specialize in, for pretty much all of their soft synths on the Roland Cloud and the Roland Phantom factory banks. I also worked with Akai, did a lot of MPC libraries, the Obi Rising and the Jupiter Rising sample libraries for the new crop of MPCs. And so I basically tend to split my time between producing and mixing records and doing sound design for various synthesizer companies. I would have to start with this one, which is actually the song Machina, which is Boy Harsher and Mariana Saldana, Ms. Bone. Ms. Bone is my girlfriend, and we tend to kind of keep, separation of church and state, but once in a while we'll work together. And this was really fun because she has such a really distinct and unique voice, and she really brought a lot of personality to the song. For me, as a producer, I focused on the vocal production on this one. I got to do a lot of fun vocoder work and really find a way to make a chorus memorable and pop without, adding any writing, really, just sort of adding vocoder chords that were there as support for the vocal. And that really kind of creates this amazing lift in that song. So I really, really appreciated that. And it's always fun to have my girlfriend at the studio. Another record I really, really enjoyed is Body of Light's Time to Kill for Deus Records. This one we actually got top 20 on Billboard Electronic and Dance. The thing about this record, making it was just kind of a party. We had a really, really great dynamic. We had a lot of fun making this record, and I think that really kind of comes across, especially on the first song, Time to Kill. There's just kind of this great mood, and I think that really was a reflection of what it was like in the studio and what the mood of the studio was like. And lastly, Madeline Goldstein's Otherworld EP. This one just came out. For me, this record, represents a big kind of leap in terms of my abilities as a producer, in terms of sonics that I was getting on this record. We spent really a lot of time making every song. It's 4 songs, but we were spending several weeks at a time kind of working on each one, and each one is very, very sonically different, but with a common thread to it. And I'm very, very pleased with the final result. The vinyl itself has a really nice cut by my friend Josh Bonatti, who mastered the record as well. There's something to it. I feel like when I listen to it, I can tell kind of how much I've grown as a producer, and I'm really, really proud of my work on this one. First one is Depeche Mode, Violator, Flood production, Francois Kevorkian on the mix. This is just if you need a textbook on how to make a fantastic sounding record, both in terms of writing and in terms of production, and especially in terms of mix, this is like a good textbook on how to do that. A lot of Emulator 3 on this record, System 700, S1000 on drums. I mean, it's a really, really well put together record with a big SSL mix on it. This record, Kraftwerk, the mix, I found my dad's tape of this, and it was probably my very, very first introduction to electronic music. I was perpetually fascinated by this record. I'd never heard anything like that before in my life. And it just, I had a, big yellow Walkman, and it was just, this cassette was locked in there. It really, really inspired me to dig deep into electronic music, and kind of began my fascination with just synthesizers and drum machines and how you piece a song together and how all of this works. And I can trace it back to this record. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. This was actually my very, very first cassette. I think it's probably the greatest record ever made. Sometimes I change my mind on that, but I would say for the most part, I can get behind this record. One of my favorite producers did this, Trevor Horn, with some work with Steve Lipson. It's just fantastic. It's a really strange record, but it represents a time where you had an absolutely grandiose budget for really, really alternative music. And it holds up today if you kind of go to some of the 12 inches too sonically. I don't think that there's anything quite like it since. It's just, it has this sound to it that's so unique and so big. It's just a great record. Favorite synthesizer? Ugh, that's a really hard one. I've kind of gone through all of them throughout my career. Basically, I've tried to distill the studio down into few pieces, but the best pieces, and that there's no overlap, so everything sort of works together, and that makes it possible to finish things without any kind of distraction. But if I had to kind of zone in on something that's a personal sort of obsession, and something where I feel like I really, really connect with the instrument, it would have to be the Synclavier. And I know that's a little bit of a cheat, because the Synclavier is much more than a synthesizer. It's a comprehensive sequencer, workstation, sampler, and really amazing FM synthesizer. But for me, to be using this PSMT tower, which is a 1984 system, as kind of the centerpiece of the studio, just the sound and the way that you work with the machine. I've never heard anything like it, and to me, it just has this massiveness to it. I used it on most recently on Puerto Negra's upcoming EP, and also on the Madeline Goldstein record, and there's a bunch of stuff that I've used it on that's hasn't been announced or is coming out. And every time I do something on it, and I hear, I just hear it rolling out between the drums and the bass, and just the sonics of it as a whole, the feel of the sequencer, it's my absolute favorite thing. I think also it has to do with just close proximity to records that I like, but it's really remarkable, and it's still relevant today in its capability and sonics. I mean, it samples at 100 kilohertz stereo 16-bit, which is, that's massive. And none of the volume changes happen digital. They actually happen in an analog domain, so it always maintains 16 bits. And that's part of the reason why it just sounds so damn good. As an FM synth, it's one of the most organic, analog sounding FM synthesizers. And as a whole, if I were to sort of say something about it, what captures it really well is that it's the most analog, real sounding system I've used that is digital, but doesn't sound like digital. Parting words. There's a lot of really, really great stuff in the works at the studio. We're also taking on a lot more bookings too. So if that's something that interests somebody, if they want to work together in whatever capacity, whether it's day tracking, just coming in and recording drums or doing vocals or a whole production, we are taking bookings. And on top of that, Inhalt as a band is reforming in a new configuration, and we're going to be playing Substance, which is a festival here in Los Angeles in November. That's going to be a big debut show on November 4th, I believe. It's the night with actually a lot of bands I produced. Houses of Heaven are playing that night as well. So if you are a fan of that, yeah, we haven't played since 2016, and we're really, really excited about it. I think we're gonna do something very special for this show, and that's basically that. It was really just a pleasure talking to you, and thank you.